At this exact moment, STRV Inc. is trading at 1.02 USD, experiencing a downward pressure of approximately 0.034, which translates to a decline of roughly 3.21% for the intraday session on this Thursday, December 4th. When you see a stock trading at barely $1, teetering on the edge of penny stock territory, your instinct is usually to look away. The expectation for a company priced at 1.02 USD is that it is distressed, irrelevant, or on the verge of being delisted from the Nasdaq. You might glance at the chart, see the red percentage for the day, and assume this is just another failed tech microcap bleeding out slowly. That is the safe, conventional assumption. But the reality of what is happening with STRV Inc. right now is arguably one of the most aggressive financial experiments in the current market. This isn't a dying company, it is a reborn vehicle. We are witnessing a public company effectively hollowing itself out to become a pure-play Bitcoin treasury, modeled directly after the strategies that turned MicroStrategy into a giant. The 3.21% drop today isn't a sign of operational failure. It is the volatility inherent in a stock that is now tethered to the price action of a volatile asset like Bitcoin. Compounded by the friction of its recent corporate transformation, the market sees a cheap stock. The reality is you are looking at a leveraged bet on the future of corporate finance. To understand why this price action is deceptive, we have to peel back the layers of the recent merger. This entity used to be known as Asset Entities, Inc., a company focused on Discord community management, a niche business with limited upside. The expectation was that it would drift into obscurity. The reality is, it has been commandeered. By merging with STRV, associated with the broader STRV ecosystem known for its anti-ESG and pro-capitalism stance, the company has pivoted 180 degrees. They are no longer just selling digital services, they are issuing capital to buy Bitcoin. This is the Bitcoin yield strategy. When you see the stock down today, it is partly because the market is still trying to figure out how to value this new animal. Is it a tech company? Is it a holding company? Or is it just a spot Bitcoin ETF with a management team attached? The answer is the latter, and that is where the explosive potential lies. Let's talk about the trading volume we are seeing today at the 1.02 USD level. It is sporadic but intense. This suggests a battle between legacy shareholders who are exiting because they don't understand the new direction, and a new class of crypto-native investors who are stepping in. The support at $1 is psychological as much as it is technical. If it breaks below $1 for an extended period, it risks Nasdaq compliance issues, which forces management to be aggressive. They have every incentive to defend this price. We recently saw them issue preferred stock under the ticker SATA to raise cash. This wasn't to pay for office snacks, it was to buy Bitcoin. The fact that they can raise capital at all in this environment proves there is an appetite for this specific business model, using the public equity markets to accumulate scarce digital assets. You have to look at the MicroStrategy playbook to understand the bull case here. Michael Saylor proved that a company could issue debt and equity to buy Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin goes up, the company's stock goes up faster than the Bitcoin itself. This is called leverage. STRV Inc. is attempting to replicate this in the small-cap arena. The expectation is that they are too small to pull it off. The reality is that being small is an advantage. They can move the needle on their balance sheet much faster than a trillion-dollar company can. A $10 million Bitcoin purchase for STRV is a massive percentage of their market cap. For Apple stock, it would be a rounding error. This high sensitivity to Bitcoin's price action is why you see the volatility today. If Bitcoin drops 1%, STRV might drop 3%. But the inverse is also true. Let's discuss the SATA preferred shares because they're a critical piece of the puzzle that most retail traders on Robinhood stock trading apps miss. STRV issued these preferred shares with a high dividend yield, around 12% initially, to attract income investors. Then they take that cash and buy Bitcoin. This is financial engineering at its finest. They are effectively arbitraging the cost of capital. If the return on Bitcoin, appreciation, exceeds the cost of the dividend they pay out, the common shareholders, that's you at 1.02 USD, get all the upside. It is a high-stakes game. If Bitcoin enters a multi-year bear market, this structure collapses because they still have to pay the dividends. But if you believe we are in a secular bull market for crypto, STRV is essentially a turbocharged call option. The connection to Vivek Ramaswamy and the STRV asset management brand adds a layer of political capital to the stock. The expectation is that politics and investing shouldn't mix. The reality is that in 2025, they are inseparable. STRV positions itself as the anti-woke alternative. They aren't going to waste money on diversity consultants or carbon credits. They are going to focus purely on shareholder returns, which in their view means hard money. This narrative resonates with a massive segment of the retail investor base who feel alienated by traditional Wall Street firms like BlackRock. When you buy STRV stock, you are buying into a philosophy as much as a company. This creates a cult stock dynamic, where the shareholders are incredibly loyal and unlikely to sell during minor dips like we are seeing today. I want to pause here and ask you a question. Comment below if you own STRV Inc. specifically for the Bitcoin exposure, or if you followed the company from its asset entities days. I am genuinely curious if the Bitcoin pivot is the only reason you are watching this ticker. Continuing with the analysis, we have to look at the risks. They are significant. The biggest risk is execution. It is one thing to say you are going to buy Bitcoin. It is another to do it without diluting the common shareholders into oblivion. Today's price of 1.02 USD reflects a dilution discount. The market knows they need to issue shares to grow. Every time they issue shares, your slice of the pie gets smaller, unless the Bitcoin they buy increases in value fast enough to offset it. This is the race they are running. You are betting on the management team's ability to time the market and manage their capital structure flawlessly. There is also the regulatory angle. The SEC has approved Bitcoin ETFs, but they are still wary of companies that act like unregistered investment funds. STRV is walking a fine line. If the SEC decides that STRV Inc. is actually an investment company and not an operating company, they could face massive fines or regulatory hurdles. However, the precedent set by MicroStrategy and Semler Scientific gives them a roadmap to follow. They argue that holding Bitcoin is their Treasury reserve strategy, not their business product. It's a subtle distinction, but a legally vital one. Let's look at the technical chart for today. The stock opened slightly higher and faded. This 3.21% drop is consistent with a risk-off day in the broader crypto markets. If you look at Bitcoin's price action intraday, you will likely see a correlation. However, STRV often trades with a beta greater than 1. This means it amplifies the moves. If you are a day trader using interactive brokers trading platforms, this volatility is what you crave. You can scalp the swings, but for a long-term holder, you have to have a stomach of steel. The 1.00 USD level is the line in the sand. We are seeing bid support there, likely from market makers keeping the stock compliant. We should also touch on the legacy business. Does the Discord community management business still matter? Surprisingly, yes, it provides cash flow. It is not much, but any operating cash flow helps to cover the overhead so they don't have to sell Bitcoin to pay the electric bill. This is what separates them from a pure ETF. An ETF has to charge fees to pay expenses. STRV Inc. has a business attached to it that can theoretically cover its own costs. This structure, an operating business on top of a Bitcoin treasury, is the holy grail because it allows for tax-efficient accumulation. The macro environment of late 2025 is also a factor. We are seeing institutional adoption of Bitcoin at a nation-state level.
With rumors of sovereign wealth funds entering the space, the supply of Bitcoin is drying up. STRV Inc. is in a race to accumulate as much as possible before the supply shock hits. If they can secure a few thousand Bitcoins on their balance sheet, and Bitcoin goes to $200,000, the stock price at 1.02 USD will look comically cheap in hindsight. The market capitalization would have to adjust to reflect the book value of the assets. However, the expectation is that small caps are dangerous. The reality is that small caps offer the highest torque. If you put money into Fidelity ETFs or a Schwab account, you might get 10% a year. With STRV, you could lose 50% or make 500%. It is binary. The drop today could be the beginning of a slide to 80 cents if Bitcoin weakens.